Hello, everybody. You're listening to episode 11 of 8-Minute Movies, Alienated, a podcast talking about the 1979 movie Alien in 8-minute chunks, presented by me, Kieran, and him, Peter. How you doing, Peter?
I'm doing okay. Yeah, I am ready to talk about more Alien, but first go on a lengthy digression about something unrelated and completely pointless.
Yeah. My digression today is going to be about a video game. What's your digression going to be about?
My digression is going to be about a video game leading into a television program.
What?
Well, I'm using the digression about a video game to springboard into a discussion about a television program.
Wow, that's exciting. Do you want to know a secret first?
Is it how you are?
No.
Well, how are you? Because you always get angry when I don't ask, so I'm trying to naturally slip it in. It's ruined now, but
I'm okay, except I hurt my arm in 2 different ways, so it's sore.
Okay, what's your secret though?
You have forgotten to get the bell.
I haven't forgotten to get the bell, but I have forgotten to pick it up from where it is next to me. I'll need to reach down for it at some point.
Listeners, write in if you think that that was bullshit.
I did look for the bell earlier and realized that it was next to my chair on the floor and that I should pick it up.
Maybe you can just tap it with a foot. I'm sure that won't make it. That won't make it any harder to hear.
I might be able to stomp it with my hoof.
Go on. You can start with your video game to TV integration project.
Okay, so we've both played Animal Crossing, right? And so you vaguely understand the appeal of having a place which you can kind of decorate up how you like, just to make it nice for you, right?
Yes.
And I've talked before about how I've been doing similar things in the video game Final Fantasy XIV.
I think you're coming perilously close to those rules we talked about where you're not allowed to talk about Final Fantasy XIV, but yeah, sure.
It's okay. I'm going to be moving swiftly away from it. So basically, the process of acquiring a house in Final Fantasy XIV is a hot nightmare. It is basically what happens is when a house becomes available, and there are limited amounts, it frees up a plot of land in a particular ward, is what they're called. And but it starts an invisible timer that nobody can see, that counts down to when the house is actually going to be purchasable. And so what this leads to is hours and hours of lots of people standing next to a sign and clicking on it over and over again until until one of them successfully buys the house, because the demand is so much higher than the supply at the moment. And so I'm not going to go into detail about this whole process because it's just boring. It's genuinely the most tedious thing I've ever had to stand there doing. And it's broken. And in the next expansion, at some point, they're going to address it somehow. But until then, this is it. And so I've been doing a lot of standing next to housing plots and clicking signs at the moment. And when you do that, you need something to occupy yourself, because otherwise you would just quickly lose your mind, honestly. And so I've been just rattling through YouTube videos of all different shapes and sizes. We've talked a bit before about just the casually grazing on YouTube videos. And what I've started to get into, which I never really thought that I would get into.
Oh God, here we are.
Is episodes of Only Connect. You know Only Connect?
Do you know, the only thing I know about Only Connect is it's hosted by Victoria Coren Mitchell?
That is correct. It's hosted by Victoria Coren Mitchell. One of my favorite things about it is that there's no audience. And at the start of the episode, she starts it with a bit of kind of jokey banter, just a little bit, just about 20 seconds or so. But she does these little jokes just to stony silence, and it's very strange format in that way. Basically, what it is it will. It's a very difficult quiz, and it's about trying to find the links between the things that come up on the screen, and they're usually quite obscure links. And during the course of one episode of the show, I'll maybe actually get to the answer a few times before one of the contestants does, because they're very obscure and very good. A lot of the time, I just got no idea what they're about. You're just staring at it, and then it's like, oh, this is what the names of different varieties of apples would be if they were French. And there's just basically variations of that format throughout the show. And so, yeah, I've been spending a lot of my days clicking on these signs in Final Fantasy XIV while watching just these impossible puzzles play out on a screen and feeling like I'm wasting my life.
I was going to say, does your free time ever feel like you're in a Salvador Dali painting?
It does, yeah, it does, very much so. Tell me about your video game experience.
Well, first of all, I just want to backtrack slightly to the. I know we're getting into dangerous waters talking about Final Fantasy XIV, but the idea that there's a housing crisis in an online game where presumably to have more houses you just have to put a new entry in a database, right? I mean, how can that be?
It's about instancing and capacity and like storage and stuff. There are reasons why they can't just infinitely increase these numbers of things. And at the moment, the game is going through this massive boom because everyone's abandoning World of Warcraft, and a lot of those people are just migrating over to Final Fantasy XIV. So there's more numbers than there ever were. So this was a problem before that, and now it's an even bigger problem. But there are legitimate technical reasons why there has to be kind of a cap on these, and they are going to be releasing more, but in order to kind of keep up with that, they need more servers. At the moment, there's a whole problem with what is it? That there's some component that superconductors, is that the thing that there's a shortage of everywhere?
Semiconductors.
Semiconductors.
Superconductors are a thing we don't really have yet, Peter.
Yeah, sorry, I misspoke. I know what I was trying to say.
There is a shortage of superconductors as well.
Yeah, it's just more of a
more of an abstract one.
Yeah. Yes, semiconductors. Sorry, is what there is a shortage of, and that means it's taking them longer than they intend to do the expansion that they've been wanting to do for a while on their servers. Everything's split out into these different data centers, which are across the world as well, and it's just a whole mess of things happening at once, which have kind of led to this being a crisis. But yeah, you're right. It is very frustrating to me that the process of purchasing a house in this video game is perhaps as stressful as doing it in life, but also just more tedious somehow as well.
Yeah, okay. I mean, as long as it's generated through a series of real world problems that are affecting the game. For a minute, I thought it was like an artificial scarcity thing. Like, do you remember PlayStation Home? I think you might have been one of the two people to play PlayStation Home.
Oh, very briefly. I hopped into it because I had a PlayStation. I wanted to see what it was about. But yeah, I don't really remember what the deal was with that. Go on.
The main thing I remember about it was they wanted to simulate So you could go to like a virtual bowling alley, right?
Yeah.
And you had to queue up for your turn to use the bowling alley. And I was like, come on, man.
Right.
I understand you want to simulate this, like, oh, it's like you're doing it in the real world. But I was like, why would you simulate the boring bits that aren't the bits that you don't want to be doing?
Yeah, it's just that they can only instance this stuff so much, and they're already split out housing into so many instances that that it's already there's a lot. I mean, it's just that they're at capacity. That's all it is. It's pretty wild. But yeah, the game's doing very well, and they're desperately trying to get the supply to match the demand, I guess.
I think it's a metaphor for capitalism.
Probably.
Why are people abandoning WoW in droves? Is it that whole Active Blizzard nightmare thing?
It's a little bit that. So that's just been kind of the thing that has made a lot of people think, maybe now it's time. Maybe now it's just time to abandon this ship. But another part of it is that WoW has just been declining for a while now. Every time an expansion has come out, people have been very underwhelmed by it. People feel like the developers have been really weirdly uncommunicative and just making bad decisions for the game, that sort of thing. And the experience with Final Fantasy XIV has been very different, despite being... despite often it feeling like you can't really talk to developers in Japan, it's just apart from the language barrier, a lot of those developers just kind of exist in a box and don't really come out of it. But the developers of Final Fantasy XIV are actually very communicative and very engaged with the community around the world. So it's been, I think, a surprise to people who have moved over from that they actually listen and do stuff that the players like. It's very, very refreshing for them. So yeah, it's just people have got a bit fed up with World of Warcraft, I think.
And plus, it did come out in 2004, didn't it? So it's pushing 17 years now.
It is old, and even the best of these in the world, I'm sure that there's got to be, they've got to have a shelf life. I think this one will carry on for many years to come, but even then, the next expansion is going to be wrapping up the decade worth of story that they started and starting a brand new story next expansion, not the one that's just about to be released, but the one after that. And so it can't last forever, right? I don't think so.
No.
Even the really popular ones, the really popular early ones didn't last forever. I think there are still people that play EverQuest or whatever, probably on some server somewhere, but it's not sustainable at that level.
God, I remember going to some Games Expo thing a long time ago and getting a whole bunch of free posters for MMOs, and I put them all up, and I never played any of them, and now none of them exist anymore. So I don't know why I brought that up. Time is the fire in which we burn, I guess.
It's because you had a strange childhood. That's why.
Thanks.
Well, no, this is just revenge because you're always trying to paint me as the strange one. But yesterday we had a conversation in which you brought up that during one childhood Christmas, everyone got you knives. So, who's the strange one?
Oh God! Now I need to explain that. It was entirely from, you have like, I guess like second level family members who you may not speak to, like, except at Christmas or maybe a birthday. And for some reason, they just all settled on getting me a pocket knife.
Right.
And so I had 5 pocket knives, and I was like, I genuinely barely speak to these people at all. Like, so it's lovely of them to send me a present. Why have they all decided to send me a knife?
I was never gifted a pocket knife as a child. I was threatened with a pocket knife, but not gifted one.
Five knives. I've still got some of them somewhere. Like, probably in the original packaging. I mean, there's a limit to how many knives one boy needs, and you can quote me on that.
Oh, it was like Christmas. It was Christmas, in fact. Think of all the things that you could stab.
Didn't help as well that one of them was like the clear winner. Like one of them was quite an expensive one with like all the fancy bits, the old corkscrew and the screwdriver and all that kind of stuff.
Were they all present at the same time that you were opening them? Because that's
no. It was like, how you you try and guess what your great nephew will want for Christmas, and you're like, what are children into this year? Knife crime.
Usually that sort of thing happens when someone suggested something and then just everyone gets it. Someone says,
yeah,
oh, that he really likes eggs, and then you just get 17 eggs.
That's exactly the vibe I got from it. Right. But like I asked around and nobody had gone, hey, you know what Kieran's really into this year? You know what he can't stop talking about? Knives.
Because that would be weird.
I agree. Like this is, I don't think this one is, you were trying to push it on me. I don't think this one is on me. Like my extended family decided to buy me knives.
I'm not saying that you were necessarily a weird child, but I am saying that you had a weird childhood, and I think that counts.
Yeah, I love it when you start telling someone an anecdote and they're just like, what is wrong with you?
How did 5 different people think, yeah, that's right, that's the gift?
He looks like he wants to kill.
I mean, that's got to reflect a little bit on you, surely.
No! One day I will get to the bottom of that whole affair.
All right, I think it's time for you to talk about your video game that you've been wanting to talk about.
I have been playing the video game Control, which came out in 2018. And I played it in 2018. Like I bought it on release, and there were a number of things that really pissed me off with it, so I put it down and only came back to it now 3 years later, when they've had time to patch all that shit.
Right.
In the first release, they didn't have anything to turn off motion blur. And the game heavily uses motion blur, so I was sick as a fucking dog.
Yeah, that doesn't agree with you, does it?
No. And I found the combat like it's like they call it a challenging game, which means the combat is ass hard, and but it boils down to the same fight over and over and over again. Like, you get more powers, but it's just, here are 30 guys running at you, shoot them or throw rocks at them. And I just wasn't into it. But I love the setting and the world and the story. Everything around it was fascinating to me. But there's just like the combat, I could take it or leave it. And then I discovered there are 2 checkboxes in the accessibility section of the game menu, which basically turned the combat off. So I was like, oh, excellent. There we go. Now I can play the game and just do the bits I want, which is exploring the environment, getting the story, and not having to worry about the terrible gunplay stuff. I tried playing it without them, and I got to a boss fight that was just absolutely fucking impossible. There's a bit where you fight a boss, and it's a giant worm, and it keeps firing explosive balls at you while you have to kind of shoot it in the eye, and it just does so much damage. I just kept dying over and over again. I was like, you know what, I'm never going to finish this game if I don't.
Yeah, I don't remember the specific fights, but I do remember several of them being difficult when I played it. And as time goes on, I feel like I've got so much less time for that kind of bullshit, and I more and more sympathy for people who just like, you know what, no, I'll put it on easy, I'll put it on turn fights off. I want to get my sort of enjoyment out of this and don't want any of the hassle that comes with it. And I realized this because I've recently been playing another difficult game, which is Metroid Dread, which has no accessibility settings at all. And because I was liking so much of the game, I gripped my teeth through all of the fights, but it really tainted the whole thing for me. So I totally get it. If there had been a button in that game to just make fighting easy, I would have clicked it in an instant. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah, one of the things that annoyed me about it, about Control and Release, was there are no difficulty levels. It's just how the developers intended, and there was nothing like the accessibility options didn't exist. In the early build, you just played it as it was, and it got my ass handed to me a number of times, and I was like, well, okay, I'm done with this.
Yeah, and I've got no patience for anymore for when developers say, "Oh, this is how we want the experience to be," and this is how it, because.
Do you know what I do if they say that to me? I watch the video of their game on YouTube. That's pretty much it.
Right, yeah, because it's actually it's fine. You can set it how you want it to be, and then just provide some options so that if someone else wants to enjoy your game without all of that, they can do. I think it's a false argument, this kind of purity of vision idea of how you present a game. It's fine if someone just doesn't want to be bothered with the fights. It's fine. It's okay. It doesn't.
Yeah, and with this, as with so many things, what other people do doesn't affect you.
No, right. You can still have your difficult stuff. It's fine.
It's fine. Doesn't matter.
I think people just resent the fact that other people might not have had to go through the same thing that you went in order to see the end. But just get over it. It's fine. It's fine. But yeah, no, I agree. The setting's really intriguing for that game, Control.
I described it to someone as the SCP Foundation, but set in the House of Leaves, which I thought worked quite well.
Yeah, no, that's a good description.
I mean, I really enjoy the setting, and like there's so much sort of creepy stuff happening on the edges. Like, I wouldn't call it a horror game, but like, there's a lot of fridge horror stuff in there, especially if you go through and read all the little reports that are lying around the place.
Yeah, they do a good job of making the kind of strange things that you encounter just genuinely weird, and not just. I'm trying to think of a good way to phrase it. It's not weird in the way that a lot of things are weird. It's just some of it really just feels kind of genuinely out there. I think I really like. There's a sequence in the game where you have to go without giving too much away about it through a series of kind of shifting corridors, and it's just really impressive.
Is this the Ashtray Maze?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, like that was blown away. Like the game is pretty as hell, and just the mechanically what they do, like with the shifting walls and everything, like it's so clever. I really wish I knew how they did it from a game design point of view, but like I say, the difficulty thing was putting me off at the start, but like everything about the game is so much fun. Like there's so much to get involved with, and I've actually now finished everything in the game. So I finished all of the missions, all of the side quests, and the 2 DLCs. So I was like, well, if you let me play it my way, it turns out I will play the entire game.
Right? Yeah. I played it pre DLC, and I have to say I probably won't go back to it now. Just because I feel like I'd be rusty at the combat, but maybe if I could turn it off, I don't know. What did you think of the DLCs?
They're both pretty good. The first one is, kind of like a more of the same DLC, right, where it unlocks a new sector in the oldest house, which is the building that the Federal Bureau of Control is based in. And the bad guy of the whole piece is called the Hiss, and I'll talk about them a little bit in a minute. But
Right.
they have infiltrated the foundation, which is the lowest level of the oldest house, and it's having weird knock-on effects everywhere else. So you have to go down there and sort it out. And that's good. It furthers the story in some interesting ways that I won't talk about because they're kind of spoilery.
Yeah.
But then the second DLC is quite out there. It's good. Again, it unlocks another whole sector that you can go into and explore.
Right.
But it aggressively ties Control into Alan Wake, which is one of Remedy's other games.
Oh, yeah, no, I heard about that. Yeah. You guys played that, right?
Yeah. I played it at your house on your PS3, I think. Or no, it was an Xbox game, wasn't it?
Wow, really? I
Yeah.
don't remember you doing that.
Yeah. I do. Oh dear. Yeah, there's a remaster coming out, I think, soon of Alan Wake. And Remedy are working on Alan Wake 2, which is probably why they added a DLC in their new popular game to remind people about it and get you all worked up for it. But yeah, there's a feature of Control where people just occasionally call you on a magic supernatural landline phone. And in the the final DLC called Ore, it's Alan Wake. He starts calling you.
Oh right, yeah, okay, yeah. Neat.
And he starts writing himself into the Control universe. It's really interesting stuff. I enjoyed it a lot.
Cool.
But I just wanted to mention the Hiss. I was really interested in the Hiss as a concept for a bad guy in a game or anything, I guess, really. It's a resonance that comes from another dimension, and it takes people over via some unseen means, and it just makes you sort of repeat this strange mantra over and over again.
Right.
And while sort of executing its will, like either just sort of floating weirdly around or fighting or killing people. And the idea behind it is just very interesting to me. And the weird little mantra that they repeat like constantly. So you can Google it. It's called the Hiss Incantation. And it's just a lot of sort of gibberish English phrases all put together. They say things like, you are home, you remind us of home. And what's the other one? Push the fingers through the surface into the wet. It's all just weird little snapshot phrases, which it comes across very creepy when it's just like dozens of voices repeating these same things in chorus.
Creepy.
It is very. But yeah, I guess if you like the sound of Control, you should play it. That's a game review.
And you can take all the difficulty away if you don't want that now.
Yeah, you can make it easy and then just play it, and then you'd be like, I'm playing a game. Look at me. I can do it on my own.
I'm really doing it. Mother.
It's interesting you mentioned Metroid Dread, because I was sort of interested in picking it up because I've never played a Metroid game. I've never played a Metroid game or a Castlevania game, so I guess I've never played a Metroidvania.
It's one of my favorite genres, but based on what you've said, I would not use this as a starting point.
Yeah, I was gonna say I asked on Twitter, I think it was, where I was like, oh, will I like Metroid Dread? And I was like, it's the hardest one of them, and I went, oh, probably not then.
There were some points because I really like the exploring aspects of Metroidvania games. I like the getting the abilities and unlocking areas and figuring out how to kind of unpick the map. But I'm not so there for the combat. I didn't mind it in a game called Hollow Knight, which is very difficult. But
yeah, I watched you play Hollow Knight.
But I feel like it has really tight controls, and so I didn't mind it so much. It was frustrating, but I felt like I was getting better at the game. With Metroid Dread, I just don't feel like the controls are quite tight enough to justify the difficulty. So half the time it was just like, I died and I'm not quite sure why it didn't work this time, and I don't get it. And so that aspect really frustrated me. And there was some points where I was just thinking, this is just a bad game. Why am I playing it? It's a bad game. Urgh. And then after an hour or so of that, I'd somehow get through that spot, and I'd be enjoying myself again because I'd be into the kind of exploring phase. But yeah, there's loads of good ones. It's one of my probably favorite genres of games. So there's plenty to recommend.
I know I watched you play Hollow Knight because I remember it. I remember one bit quite well, and it's possibly I think it is my favorite thing I've ever seen happen in a game. And it was absolutely fucking hilarious.
I mean, I don't even remember. So what?
I don't. Is it a spoiler? Can I mention it? When did Hollow Knight come out? All right, we'll discuss a Hollow Knight spoiler. If you don't want to be spoiled on Hollow Knight, skip ahead by like a minute. Okay, is that fair?
Yeah. All right. Possible Hollow Knight spoilers, yes. Sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is an actual Hollow Knight spoiler. So, there's a big giant beetle lady who runs a bank, and you can give her money, like because when you die, you lose the money you've got on you, so you can give her the money to sort of store it up. And you kept giving this character money, and so that you wouldn't lose it when you get killed. And then you came back to her, and it was like an obvious cardboard cutout that fell over, and she'd basically just run off with all of your money.
Wow, I forgot all about that.
And no, it was the funniest thing. Like I was crying with laughter. And like later in the game, much later, you have the opportunity to get all your money back. But it's like it's so much having the rug pulled out from under you by the developers. I thought it was fantastic. It was so good.
Yeah. Hollow Knight is a really good game. It's got I love everything about it, but it is a really difficult game.
Oh dear. Yeah, just a Metroid Dread again. Do you want to know my latest conspiracy theory?
What's your latest conspiracy theory?
The reason that they put Bitrex coating on the outside of Switch cartridges is to stop you from biting them in half with frustration.
I mean, it could be because I didn't get a physical copy of this, but I was very frustrated at some point. What really calmed me down during the final boss fight experience is that my nephews were there. So
you couldn't say fuck.
Yeah, I couldn't get too angry because I had to set a good example about getting annoyed at games. So I was just like dying and then sort of gritting my teeth and going, "All right." I think at one point I said, "Shoot."
Oh dear. Oh, it's weird that at the start of all this you mentioned Animal Crossing as well, because there's that big update coming soon.
Yeah, it might be the thing that drags me back. It might be.
Oh, well, here's the thing, right? I've got... So if you haven't played Animal Crossing, like, what happens when you leave it for a while and you come back is you have to talk to all of the characters, and they're like, "Oh, I haven't seen you in a while. I guess you abandoned us forever, you monster." And I'm like, I can't face their emotional blackmail. I wish there was like an option you could press to be like, "I'm sorry, I abandoned my friends for 18 months."
Yeah, what I wish there could be is like look, I'm going to be going away for a bit. I've decided I'm not going to play the game for a bit. I'm done for a bit. Can you just pause? But it doesn't.
Like the clock keeps ticking forever. Yeah. Like you go in and they're like, "I remember you," and you're like, "No, please."
Where were you? We relied on you for turnips.
we lynched Tom Nook in the town square. Yeah, so basically, I've got to decide. There are 3 courses of action open to me, right? Ignoring this whole thing forever and like running away from it. facing my fears and going to talk to all of my villagers and being like, hello. It's not even like difficult now, because they used to be like very emotionally blackmailing. Now they're like, oh, were you on holiday or something? And then that's it. They don't mention it anymore. But you do need to talk to like 14 of them to get them to do it. Or I can take the nuclear option and erase my game save. I can destroy the island while they sleep.
I think I will probably face my fears, but also I'm thinking, well, will Final Fantasy XIV, will it scratch enough of that itch that I don't need this anymore? Because, I get to have my house presuming that eventually I click the sign at the right moment before everyone else, and I get to decorate it nicely, and, that will be nice. And they're in the next expansion, they're even adding an island where you can grow things. So it's basically the same at that point.
Oh god, I just like the idea that there's this whole simulation or simulacra thing about whether I can just destroy all of my virtual friends while they sleep in between heartbeats.
Yeah, they won't feel a thing.
No, the game actually, while it's erasing them, like there's an animation of Tom Nook executing them all one by one in their beds with a rifle. It's really dark.
Yeah, it takes some of the bit tracks from the cartridge and just injects it into their code.
Oh my god,
it's extremely painful.
So, 40 minutes into this podcast, should we talk about the thing that we're here to talk about?
Oh, go on then, but first I need to just ding.
Why did you... You can't ding before we explain the dinging rules.
That's never been a
canon.
Rule.
That's canon.
It's never been a rule.
It's retconned. It's canon.
No.
It's in my tragic backstory about knives. So this is a podcast about the movie Alien. I think we mentioned that an hour or so ago. And we observe the movie Alien with our eyes, in little chunks. 8 minutes, of course, because 8 is a very spiritual number, I assume. And we watch them, and then we talk about them. Now, I'm a normal human being, and I have seen films, and Peter was accidentally ripped out of time in the 17th century and brought forward here, so he doesn't understand the moving pictures that make noises.
Look, we've discussed this, and you've got no grounds to do this to me. None at all.
You started it this time. I think I think I'm fair in catching up here.
All right.
But it would explain your penchant for top hats. So we talk about it basically. Is there more to it than that? It's been so long since we've recorded one of these, I've forgotten.
No, there's not any more to it than that. Worst summary yet. Well done.
Sorry, I had a cold for 2 weeks, so we couldn't record it. It wasn't COVID.
We're going to stop doing this.
It wasn't COVID. I had 3 PCR tests.
Seriously, though, weren't we going to stop doing this? I thought we'd agreed.
Yeah. I think we agreed that we would, then. But I think every week that we agree that we will, and then we don't.
Yeah, we're definitely going to stop doing this.
We'll definitely stop next time. We promise. So now I usually talk about something that's sort of related to the movie, but might not be the movie, in a section that we call Let's Not Talk About the Thing, because the first season was about the Thing, and we didn't think of a better name for this season. Hashtag consummate professionalism.
I mean, on that subject, and before we get into this, do we want to explain the little game?
No, that comes after. Like, the order of this podcast is really weird. Like,
no, this just seemed like a natural point to bring it up.
You just want to trick me, don't you? You want to be able to ding me should I say the word thing while talking to you.
I think I've made it clear that I can ding you anytime I like.
You can't. The rules are clear. If the rules are unclear, then write in, I guess. I don't know.
Well, we've started down this road now, so I'm going to do it, whether we like it or not.
All right, get on with it then. Fuck you.
So, we play...
I'm going to talk all over it.
We play... I'm going to turn this podcast around right now.
I think many people would agree that would be an excellent idea.
Yeah. We play a little game, a little mini game while we're recording this podcast, just for the fun of it. And it started during our last podcast about The Thing. And the game is that if either one of us says the phrase or word thing or things, when we're not talking about the film The Thing, the monster in the film The Thing, or this game that I'm explaining at the moment, then we get to ring a bell like this. Ding.
Ding.
Yep. And then the other person gets to feel silly. At the end of the run of podcasts, the person with the most dings to their name has to move to Australia.
I thought we were being executed by firing squad.
I'm not entirely clear on what the penalty is.
Remember that also it applies if we say Geiger instead of Giga, but that doesn't come up too much.
No.
Or if we say alien in the wrong context.
If say alien meaning not the film or the monster.
I surely felt alienated today.
I think we're also allowed to say the name of the podcast.
Yes, that's true. Would you like to hear me talk to you about Harry Dean Stanton?
I would, and firstly, I would like you to remind me who Harry Dean Stanton is.
Harry Dean Stanton is the actor who plays Brett.
That's what I thought, but I wasn't quite sure.
He was born on July the 14th, 1926, and he was an American actor, musician, and singer. His career spanned more than 6 decades, with him usually playing a supporting role in films such as Cool Hand Luke, Kelly's Heroes, The Godfather Part 2, Escape from New York, a John Carpenter film there, Christine, Pretty in Pink, The Green Mile, and, of course, Alien. He was born in West Irvine, Kentucky, the son of a tobacco farmer and a cook. His family had a musical background, and he told an interviewer for a 2011 documentary, "I had to decide if I wanted to be a singer or an actor. I was always singing. I thought if I could be an actor, I could do all of it." His breakthrough part came in the lead role in Wim Wenders' Paris, Texas, 1984. Playwright Sam Shepard, who wrote the film's script, spotted Stanton at a bar in Santa Fe, New Mexico in 1983 while both were attending a film festival in that city. In a 1986 interview, Stanton said, "I was telling him I was sick of the roles I was playing. I told him I wanted to play something of some beauty or sensitivity. I had no inkling he was considering me for the lead in his movie." So I guess if you're an actor, you should always consider what you're saying when you're talking to a director. Stanton occasionally toured nightclubs as a singer and guitarist, playing mostly country-inflected cover tunes, and participated in the video for Bob Dylan's Dreamin' of You.
Did he have any major music releases?
I don't think so, no. Stanton was a favourite of film critic Roger Ebert, who said that no movie featuring either Harry Dean Stanton or M. Emmett Walsh in a supporting role can be altogether bad. Unfortunately, Stanton passed away aged 91 on September the 15th, 2017, at the Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles. His ashes were spread outside downtown Lexington, Kentucky. That's nice of him.
That's a long old run, though. I always like to hear when people have genuinely had the chance to get old, you know.
Yeah, I mean, 91 is a really good innings. No one could argue that.
Yeah, who were we talking about the other day? Christopher Plummer as well.
Yeah. It's weird because we watched Knives Out last night, which of course also has M. Emmett Walsh in it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that led to the whole knife revelation.
Don't describe it as a revelation.
I mean, I felt like something was revelated.
I'm gonna go and find one of the knives after this. I've got a good feeling I know where one of them is buried.
Wrenching this back on topic, I don't know that I've seen many of those other films that you mentioned.
The Godfather Part 2, maybe?
I haven't actually seen any Godfather films all the way through.
Do you know what? I've never seen any of them at all. So I feel like somebody might write in about that one.
Yeah, no, it's just not something that particularly interests me. It's the same with it's the same with some other films that everyone expects you to have seen. Like I don't really care about Bond either, to be perfectly honest.
Gasp!
I don't really care about Bond. The most recent Bond film I have seen is Casino Royale.
I've seen all the recent Bonds, but not No Time to Die, because I don't really want to go and hang out in a room full of strangers at the moment. I don't know.
Yeah.
Escape from New York. You've probably seen that. I've watched that before.
I mean,
I must have inflicted it upon you at some point.
I don't remember anything about it. If you did,
it's got Kurt Russell in it.
You've probably had it on in the background. I mean, I've forgotten way more films that you've shown me than I can name.
Oh dear. All right, well, we're at the section of the podcast that says introduce the game with the bells. So I guess you've done that. Well done.
I've done that, yeah.
We had an email from a listener.
Really?
Yeah.
Go on.
Do you we've never done this before. I'm not sure what the format is. Thank you to Zenaku, who wrote in to say that the emergency helmet we saw in the first episode of the show is actually a British E-type partial pressure aircrew flying helmet, commonly known as the Taylor E-type. It was introduced in the early 1960s, and it was used when flying at high altitudes in case of cabin depressurization. The helmet had a series of gas bladders that squeezed the pilot's head and could also sense the cabin pressure and have the visor snap shut to seal the face automatically. In the 1960s, it was technologically very advanced at the time, but unpopular and uncomfortable to wear. You had to do up a number of drawstrings to hold it shut behind your head, and to get out, you had to find a dangling lanyard behind your head that undid a central zip. We spoke about it because there's I was going to say a thing, but I'm not going to. There's an object on the front of it that we mistook for a button, but it's not. In the diagrams, it's sinisterly labeled the mouth door.
Yeah.
It's not. I can't figure out what it's for. It's not for air supply because there's a separate air supply. I think it's for like putting snacks in your mouth. That's the only thing I can think of.
Oh, so,
or possibly talking on a radio. I don't know. Yeah, I was like, oh, they must have some technical term for this. The mouth door. But yes, thank you for writing in with something that we were confused about. That was very cool of you. Thank you.
It's good knowledge. But who do you think you are? Coming in here and
into my house
and doing better research than we were able to do on our podcast. My goodness, the sheer nerve of it.
Stop it. Don't be mean. Adam Savage actually has one of these E-type helmets. I watched a YouTube video of him explaining it.
Well, you've just reminded me at some point I need to get into a lengthy digression about the special channel on my new television.
Oh, God.
But perhaps another time.
I'm sure that came up when you spoke about your TV at length.
But it's got weirder because I've started watching it occasionally, and there's just very weird things about the channel that we didn't talk about last time.
Well, there you go, listeners. That'll keep you in suspense. Right. Okay. So it's a mere hour in, and it's time to start talking about the podcast. Hooray! Last time we said who's infected, and you said Dallas with several exclamation marks.
Yeah.
What happens?
Right.
I actually put both down.
Yeah.
Thank you for belittling me in public.
Interabangs. Yeah.
Fuck you. No one says that.
No, it's no one does.
What happens next? Special Order 937. And you said the next line is something like "at any and all costs," which explains Ash's behavior.
Yes.
You didn't really go into any more detail than that.
Yeah, no, I didn't know what was going to happen after this. It turns out, and we'll get into it, that there's some quite memorable things that happen.
Yeah, almost immediately.
Almost straight away, which I didn't remember as happening right away after this moment. But yeah, we'll get into that.
And we got who dies next? It's Parker. He's on his own and isolated, which are the same word, really. I mean, they mean the same thing, don't they, Peter?
It's on his own, isolated, by himself. You know, he's
individual.
Yeah, he's solo. Yeah.
No, come on, I want two more.
He's incognito. That's wrong.
That's wrong. That's wrong.
Yeah. No, I'm done.
Hang on. I'm going to a thesaurus.
Al dente.
No. He's lonely. Oh. Lonesome, solitary. Did we do solitary? I think you did solitary.
No, yeah. Did solitary. I said solo.
Apart.
Yeah.
Incommunicado.
Yeah,
maybe.
Isolated, I think we said.
Yeah. Unaccompanied.
Yeah.
Detached. Why are we doing this?
Well, it's better than recording a podcast, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. It really is.
No, let's move on.
Yes, and with that, it's time for us to drop into the show. Ooh. I made a very weird noise there, and I've never made it before when we enter the show section of the podcast, and I'm not sure whether I'm going to keep it or not.
Yes, a bit like a dying owl.
I was expecting you to join in with the noise, and you just stood there in stoic silence with a look of disgust on your face.
That's pretty much it, yeah.
We're covering 1 hour and 20 minutes to 1 hour 28 minutes of Alien, and as always, this isn't a watch-along podcast. Stop it at once. Just watch the movie. It's not that scary. Like, all the scary stuff has happened already, for barring like 4 or 5 more scary things that are due to happen, but they're not that scary. Stop it. Just go watch Alien and then come back. And if you're tuning in to this episode for the first time, just go and listen to episode 1. Come on, like, you know, it's a serial podcast. You've got to start at the beginning. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's a viable approach to watch each 8 minutes and then wait a week and then come back, but I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't either. All right, so how this works is I read out a list of things and then we talk about them. I'm debating whether to remove this part of this explanation from the podcast or not.
It's really self-explanatory.
It's just chaff, ways. Isn't it? Like,
yeah.
You know,
just
much
padding,
like...
and what we've come to understand over time is that we really don't need to pad this podcast out anymore, do we?
We just keep talking until one of us dies. All right, fuck it, let's get started. We finish seeing Special Order 937. All other considerations secondary. Crew expendable. Gasp.
All right, well, I think that is pretty much what I predicted. I didn't predict beyond this, but sure, I was right in saying that the next line was going to be about how everything else doesn't matter. I don't think it was a difficult thing to guess, but it was correct.
All other considerations secondary. Crew expendable. Brackets, except that pretty girl Ripley. Um, it's pretty clear the company values the alien a lot more than human life. I mean, they explicitly said that. But there are a couple of interesting questions here. How did they find out about it? How will they deal with all of this evidence on the ship's computer? Stuff the movie doesn't address, but it doesn't have to. Looking at you there, Ridley Scott, you don't need to go back and explain all the mysteries from one of your better films with a series of inferior films.
Yeah, I mean, I just read it as corporations bad, probably, That's enough. You don't need more.
So, but it is pretty specific, like Special Order 937. The Nostromo is rerouted this way because they know they'll pick up the distress signal. So something must have found the distress signal and caused them to become excited at the prospect of finding some sort of alien thing.
Yeah, I wonder how much they do know about it, because my thinking is, if they knew everything about it, then this wouldn't have been their method of transporting it back. They would have had a better plan than this.
I don't know. There's a line in Aliens. Are we allowed to talk about Aliens? The sequel? I'm not sure.
Sure, go on. What
well, there's a character in Aliens who wants to get samples of the aliens back to Earth, and they're talking about it. They realize his plan, and they're talking about it. They're like, how would he possibly have been able to do this? Because, quarantine at Earth would stop anything weird coming in.
Yeah.
They were like, the only way they could do it is if one or more of us was infected with the aliens inside us, and they just kind of smuggled us in.
Yeah, but I mean, I get that, but if they knew a lot about the alien, then surely they'd have a better plan than have a robot secretly infiltrate the crew and then just let one of the crew get infected and then just let the alien rampage around the ship for a while and hope that that's fine.
Yeah, and fingers crossed everything will be all right.
Yeah, surely the intention would have been to contain it somehow.
Get alien on ship, ? Profit.
Yeah.
Ripley sits back in shock, and Ash is behind her. It's a little tiny jump scare.
Was the door closed before this? I don't remember.
That's a good point. I thought it was. I'm going to go and check the video. Yep, it is. It slides closed automatically behind her, so he must have come in.
As we know, because we've seen it a couple of times now, that door is noisy as heck.
Yeah, there's a whole procedure.
Yeah, it's really on Ripley for not noticing that one.
Maybe she was distracted by her bosses specifically saying they didn't care whether she lived or died.
Probably.
Hashtag capitalism. Ash says there's an explanation for this, and Ripley grabs him and throws him against the wall.
Now, what I really like about this moment here is that Ripley just kind of has a little crisis here, has a little moment, and then in a second just kind of pulls it together really quickly. And I think that's just a really neat character moment there. A lot of the other crew members are not capable of handling this level of crisis in the same way. And obviously she is under an incredible amount of pressure in that moment and just cracks for a moment.
Yeah.
And just lets it show for a second and then gets it together in the next moment.
I didn't really write anything about that, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, it is a great little scene. I think my anticipation of what's coming up next sort of made me skip ahead a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, she does. She's like, she doesn't even get out words just after she throws him against the wall, but she does, as you say, like pull it together real quick. And that's why she's in command. Now.
Yes.
It's interesting what Dallas's response to this would have been. I mean, we can't really say Kane's because he doesn't really do much in the movie. He just goes into a hole and then dies.
Yes.
She storms off into the galley and tries to call Parker or Lambert on the comms with no response. She tries to leave to go and find them, but Ash closes the door in her face. It's a callback. She did this to Dallas earlier, remember?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do remember now that you mention it. Yeah.
The ship has a button you can press to close doors annoyingly in someone else's face at a distance.
Hoisted by her own petard.
I mean, that is what that means, I guess. Ash stares at her impassively as she tries to leave.
Very creepy sort of look there, and it gets creepier.
Did you notice the mysterious nosebleed that Ripley has out of nowhere here?
I don't think I did.
So there's a scene which was filmed just before this attack, and it got removed, where they try and lure the alien into the airlock, and they almost managed to do it, but Ash sets off a siren which makes it flee, just as Ripley shuts the door, and part of its tail gets caught in the closing door, which leaks acid blood and melts the door, and there's a depressurization. Ripley just barely escapes, and she has a nosebleed from the pressure change. So that's why she's got a little nosebleed here. Which just, I mean, it just sort of comes from nowhere. She's just angry at Ash, and then there's a nosebleed, which is a physiological response, I guess. But it's just interesting that it's from a whole nother scene, which never made it into the movie.
Yeah, no, I just didn't clock that.
Ripley asks him to let her go, and we get another close-up of his face, and a bead of white fluid trickles down from his hairline. It's cream.
It's really difficult now, with hindsight, to think what the audience would be thinking at this point. Yeah,
I've got this down. It's like, what are you thinking this is the first time you see the movie? I mean, like,
yeah.
What on earth could it be? I mean, it looks like sweat gone wrong, I guess.
Yeah. I think what I think when this first happens is maybe the alien is dripping down on top of him or something.
Yeah.
But then wouldn't that be painful and acidy? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't even have the tools to take my mind out of all of the context around it that I know to be able to think about what it is. But that's a good, assumption.
Yeah. I think that's maybe what I might be thinking, but I have got no idea because I know so clearly that what is actually happening here. That like you, I don't know how I responded the first time that I saw it.
Ripley tries to get past him, and he grabs her hair and throws her on the floor. So Ash is sort of gurning. He's pulling a whole number of weird expressions here.
Yeah.
And he's stopped talking, and instead he sort of makes this mad giggle, and it sort of seems like he's having some kind of breakdown.
It does. It's very odd.
And it's almost like, maybe he's got Asimov-style protect the human laws, and he's working against them, and it's causing some sort of weird problem elsewhere in his robot brain.
Oh, maybe. I never really thought about it in that way.
There's another line from Aliens where she's talking to another android who says, now we have behavioral inhibitors that make us follow, the 3 laws.
Yeah.
But these ones don't, so... or he says they were very twitchy, and I'm like, well, multiple murder.
Yes.
Ripley tries to scuttle away from him, but he grabs her and throws her against the wall. She does get beaten up quite badly in this scene.
Yeah. It's very it's not really a fight. It's just a beating, really.
Yeah, she keeps trying to get away from him. He keeps grabbing her jumpsuit and smashing her on stuff.
Yeah.
Ash stands and watches her impassively again. The camera rotates around his head. So it's quite a long scene, really, with just this section where Ripley is sort of lying in a agonized puddle in an alcove, and he's standing, just staring directly at her, and the camera pans almost completely around his head while he's watching her.
Yeah, and I think it makes a little bit of sense of what is about to be a series of kind of vaguely nonsensical things that are about to happen. That I think what we're supposed to be getting from this is that whatever's happening at the moment, he's not following any kind of normal line of reasoning.
Yeah. I think this whole scene sort of works if you imagine that he's got some sort of internal conflict going on about whether this is a thing that he should be doing or not.
Right.
After a moment, he picks her up again and throws her into a seating alcove. So his eyes are twitching and he's looking up and around kind of randomly. He's wiggling his fingers. And I'd say like it kind of looks like he's fighting himself. Like it's a very strange look he's got going on.
Yeah.
Here we go. He picks up a magazine, rolls it up tightly, and tries to cram it into her mouth.
All right, what the fuck?
Yeah, so this is, I think, the part of this whole sequence that generates the most questions from people when they watch it. Why is Ash feeding her a magazine?
Yeah, because I mean the read of it, the just kind of standard read of it, of someone just watching, is that he's looking around thinking, what can I use to murder this person with? And comes to the conclusion that the most efficient murder method would be to roll up a magazine and shove it into her mouth. Which, baffling. I mean, clearly he could just snap her like a twig at this point. Seems strong enough. But no, the old classic murder that we've all come to know in films, the old roll and cram.
From the director's commentary, there's a sort of sexual undertone here. I say undertone. Holman Scott discussed it, and it was like, this is the way for Ash's weird sexual urges to come to the forefront. Like, he's always wanted to have sex with her, but doesn't have the ability to, and this is sort of his way of doing it.
It's not too subtle,
no,
honestly. No. And if I really think about it, I could have done without it. I'm gonna say.
Ridley Scott compares him to HAL 9000 from 2001. Like they've tried to give a computer the ability to process complex emotional reactions to situations, and when a conflicting one arises, it just can't handle it. I was thinking it's almost like if you imagine that he's sort of like got this internal conflict going on, and it's like using up processor cycles or whatever. A human would not pick up a magazine as a murder weapon. No. Like you'd go for a bar, an iron bar or something, like, you know, anything else. You'd see it and disregard it. But maybe a computer making an immediate decision would be like, yes, okay, this is a path of action I can take. If I cram this magazine into a human's mouth, the human will die. Yeah,
and that's the only way that I can read this as and again, I just read it as this computer is not thinking along human lines. It's just kind of it's making decisions not based on what a rational person would do in this moment. But I think overall, this is probably the moments following and immediately preceding I really enjoy, but I think this particular moment in the film is probably my least favorite moment in the film, because it's
very strange.
It's very strange, and it just a little bit takes me out of it and makes me think, they probably just wanted to do this just so that they could I don't know, cram a cylinder into Ripley's mouth. That's and this is a way that they had to do it. I don't know. It just feels the metaphor feels a little bit forced to me.
When I was like 13, I bought an Aliens comic, like in the UK. Like it was just like Alien Resurrection had just come out, and they were like, "Oh, we can republish some of the other Alien comics, and people will buy them because there's interest in them." And I often think back because there was a lengthy section in it, like 3 or 4 pages dedicated to the sexual imagery of the Alien series, and I'm like, I didn't know if it was the right medium. Like, why did you put this in this comic, which ostensibly children will probably read?
Yeah, I mean,
and it does mention this bit, and especially Ash in a moment jiggling around, spurting white fluid everywhere. It's not like a subtle sequence at all, is it?
I suppose they're just imagining a slightly older audience for it, even if they know that children are going to get their hands on it. As we've discussed before, you were probably on the younger end of the Alien fandom spectrum. To be fair,
it was marketed to children. They put it in with the comics. I think that might be an English thing, though. I think more adult comics were a very American thing, and English newsagents maybe just didn't really know what to do with them.
Yeah,
just like they put it in with the fucking Beano, Peter.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. Because, but also, I just feel like the marketing for Alien has always been a little bit confused and continues to be. Like we've talked about the I've forgotten the name of the live show.
Alien War.
Alien War, yeah, we talked about that and how that was, a lot of children went on that. We've talked about the fact that Alien just came into Fortnite a little bit as well. And so
did we ever talk about the Aliens toy line?
I don't know whether we have talked about that.
Oh wow. Okay, so let's have a little tangent here for a second. Aliens got its own toy line, like specifically aimed at children, obviously, because they're toys. Yeah. It was called Operation Aliens. And they were working on a cartoon based on aliens. Like a cartoon for children, based on aliens, and this was the spin-off. Now, Aliens was an 18-rated series at the time, and the concepts in it, I think, are a bit much for kids. Like, you've got the face hugger that smothers you, then you get a thing in your chest you can't do anything about, it bursts out and kills you, which then grows into a big monster and kills all your friends and family.
Even speaking as one of those kids, you think it's a bit much for kids.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Oh God, let's not get into why must you turn this podcast into child psychology every time, Peter?
Well,
every time.
It's because I feel like the topics that we discuss in this podcast get to the very heart of who you are as a person.
I don't know. I claim that you're raised by bats once, and you just won't let it go. Yeah. So some way into the production of this cartoon, they realized that no one in their right mind would ever greenlight it. And they abandoned it, but they'd already started making the toys. So, you could buy the toys, and I've got all of the toys.
Of course you do.
Because of course I have.
Yeah. This is who it was aimed at. Exactly. Because I suppose at some point, something gets so big that it's just going to... enough children are going to like it, even if that shouldn't be the case.
Yeah.
The company start thinking, we should get on that train. We gotta we got to corner that market as well. I mean, it's same with. I'm sure it'll be the same with stuff like the new stuff like Squid Game, which is huge at the moment. Extremely,
you can already get Squid Game Funko Pops.
Of course, right? And just extremely violent. Just, I would not want a young child to watch it, really. And yet, there are definitely kids talking about it, and definitely kids getting into it right now. And at some point, and as seems to already be happening, people are going to want to make money off of those kids.
Interestingly, there was also an Alien toy line. So we've spoken a bit before about how Alien came into being off the back of Star Wars, because after Star Wars came out, sci-fi movies were huge.
Yes.
So Star Wars had a massive tie-in line of toys, right? So Kenner, they were made by a company called Kenner, and at the time, any sort of sci-fi movie was considered like a goldmine for toy production. So Kenner made a whole bunch of Alien toys, right? And then someone with their head screwed on was like, we absolutely cannot market these toys to children.
Yeah.
And they were never released until about 2010, when somebody found the molds, like the original, the injection molding molds for the models, worked out what they were, and was like, oh shit, like a nostalgia thing, we could just press these now and make a fucking fortune.
Yeah.
And they did, and I've got those as well. Stop it. Why do I feel so attacked at this podcast?
Those originals have got to be worth like £1 billion, and like.
Well, they were never made. Like there were no toys pressed. Like they got to the stage of designing everything and making the molds for them, and they were like, well, actually, this project's probably not going to make us any money. Let's do something else.
They must have made like prototypes or something.
Oh yeah, I assume somewhere.
Yeah. Somewhere someone's got one of those, and it'd be worth so much.
They have the things they chose as well for children. Like there's one with Kane with a chest burster, like out of his chest. And that's my favorite one.
Just, it's fascinating sometimes when something gets made that at no point someone says, well, I suppose at some point they did in this case, but often at no point someone says, hang on a minute.
Are we sure?
Way too late.
Yeah. They're interesting as well because they have you ever played with any of the Star Wars toys from the 70s?
No.
Did you get any of those as a kid?
I was
in your like hibernation pod or however you were formed.
I was never really action figure. I think we've talked about this a little bit before. I had the Ghostbusters ones.
I was too young for the Star Wars ones, but my brother had lots of them, so I ended up with lots of them as like hand-me-downs. And the quality of Kenner toys in the 70s was fucking awful. Like I suppose you can't fault them too much for doing what they could do with the technology of the time, like especially now where we've got like 3D printers and shit that like those sintering printers that can print faces on stuff and everything. But they weren't good, and they don't look very much like the people they're supposed to look like, and they break quite easily. And that's true of the modern ones as well. They're not; they're pretty fragile. But one of the things I liked about them, well, not liked, it's just a weird aside, is that on the packaging they would print like a close-up of the character, like looking, like, oh, look, it's scary. And they didn't do it for a couple of them because the actors had died and couldn't be asked for their likeness rights. So those were like those ones just look a little bit more vague than the others. But you can figure out who they are.
Well, this is new. We've had like a digression within the actual commentary of the podcast.
It's fucking Inception. And I haven't written down that we did this, so at some point I'm going to talk at length about the toys again, and you're going to be like, you're going to sound equally as surprised. It's just like how about 15 times in the series of this podcast we've mentioned that Jonesy was 4 separate cats, and we just did it again. It's just one of those things that I don't write down and we just keep coming back to over and over.
I do worry if either of us have memories good enough in order to make this podcast sustainable, or whether we're just going to eventually be returning every week and retelling the same stories to ourselves over and over again and being surprised every time.
Well, why don't you wrote down you've viciously barbed me over childhood knives? How about that?
No, I want to keep doing that anyway.
It wasn't my fault. Back to Ripley getting the magazine in the mouth. Delightfully, someone is dead in this fashion in Alien Isolation.
Okay.
You can find a body which has a, they're dead and they've got a magazine jammed into their mouth, almost all the way down. It's very horrible.
Oh, in that fashion, right? Okay. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
I was like, it's like a lovely little homage to Alien. They've been murdered by an android, so why not?
Okay, I both love and hate that, because that means, because I believe that game is canon, right?
I don't know, actually. I assume so.
I think it's supposed to be canon, but I don't care about canon, but whatever. It's supposed to be canon, but that means canonically this is just a routine murder method for androids.
Maybe in the future, maybe it's like Looper. In the future, like, murder weapons are so strictly regulated that you have to kind of like improvise, and people are like, you need to try the old magazine trick yet? And like,
that's the first thing you learn at robot camp. Yeah.
Day one, it's cogito ergo sum. Day two, magazines down holes. Apparently Ridley Scott, who is British, told Sigourney Weaver, who is American, that the magazine was going to be shoved down her hooter, which she did not understand.
Thought they were gonna put it somewhere else.
Yeah. Let's move on. Ripley struggles against him for a few moments until Parker and Lambert arrive. Hooray!
Yeah, they come to save the day.
Yeah, they do. They try to pull Ash off Ripley with little success. He grabs Parker's chest, making him scream. This is the ultimate titty twister here.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't even look that strong, but like it must really hurt. My notes here say Ash fights weird.
He does fight weird.
He does fight weird. He also, he's very strong, and I think Scott just wanted to show that as simply as possible. Like, you know, he's been slinging Ripley around like a sack of potatoes. He can just grab Parker with one hand and cripple him.
Which, again, no need for the magazine. Could have just reached down and snapped Ripley.
Could have just picked her up by the feet and whirled her around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, dear. Parker grabs a fire extinguisher and thumps Ash on the neck, knocking him away. Milky liquid sprays from his lips. Subtlety.
Yeah, but at least now the audience is starting to put it together.
Yeah, there's something going on here. Ash whirls around against the walls, out of control, spraying more of the liquid from his mouth. So I've written he's gibbering here, like the noise he's making is like bleep, 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 bleep. It's a very strange noise.
It sounds a bit processed as well, which is adding to the effect.
Yeah, we spoke about this just before the podcast, and we were trying to identify what it could be. And I was saying it is mostly human at first, but then they start adding in other things. Like there's definitely a bit of echo going on, isn't there? And
yeah, I think as we get deeper into this sequence, you start getting. I don't believe that it's actual mechanical sounds. Maybe there's some of that, but I don't believe it's actual mechanical sounds. I think it's synthesized sounds that have been made to imitate mechanical sounds, which is quite an interesting choice.
Parker swings the fire extinguisher again, snapping his head 90 degrees to the right and ripping his neck open, revealing pipes and tubes.
Tell me about these pipes and tubes.
I'll tell you about the pipes and tubes in a minute. Not yet.
Okay.
At the moment, they're just mystery pipes and tubes. What's happening? My note here is, what must this be like the first time you see it? Like, what are these people, what are the audience thinking is going on with this dude? Like, because you don't know anything about robots and androids and stuff going into this universe. Like, you're just like, the things in this universe are humans and aliens. So is he an alien?
I feel like at this point when I first, because I don't remember like the trickle of the little milky trickle. I don't remember what my response was to that when I first saw it, but I'm pretty sure when I saw this bit for the first time, specifically the whirring around against the wall and all of that kind of stuff, I thought, this a robot.
Mm.
I'm pretty sure that I put it together at that point.
Oh, well, good for you. Not a difficult special effect to figure out here. It's just Ian Holm with his head folded forwards out of the way and pipes up the back of his uniform.
Good whirring around, though, I think. I think it's effective.
Ash spins around, his head hanging on with a little bit of tattered flesh, as Parker hits him again and again with the fire extinguisher. Eventually, Ash is still. Parker, shocked, says, "It's a robot. Ash is a goddamn robot." There you go. The audience has been caught up.
Thinking about it, though, that fire extinguisher, perfect weapon to attack Ripley with. What are you doing?
Well, it wouldn't fit in her mouth, would it?
Well, depends how to turn it, I suppose.
Oh my god. Do you want to know how I got these scars? Sorry, that's from a film called Batman, Peter. There's a character in it called the Joker. You can
like a fun guy.
You can Google it after this. Parker leans in close, and Ash revives, gibbering still, and grabs him. So they reuse this in Alien Isolation as well. There are often androids who will spring back to life to scare you. And nice. Jesus Christ, the number of times I've genuinely almost shat myself playing that goddamn game.
It's the main reason that I don't want to play that game myself. Laundry reasons.
A friend of mine offered to let me play Alien Isolation in virtual reality, and I was like, not unless you put down a fucking tarp first.
Oh no, like for you, it's like both the increased stress levels of having to deal with that in VR, but also just the constant. You just feel ill. No, I can't even imagine you attempting that.
I remember letting a friend of mine play Alien Isolation like on my Xbox, and it's got a real slow build up, so you don't see or experience the alien for at least the first hour, right? Yeah. But there's a lot of like jump scary stuff that happens up to that point, and he got through like 2 or 3 of these minor jump scares. He's like, "No, I can't," and he put the console down. I'm like, "Oh."
Yeah, I've been putting off playing that Resident Evil game that's on PSVR.
Is that Village?
Or
7?
I think it's Village.
Is
it? No, is it? Which one's the new one? The new one.
Village is the newest one because it's VII, isn't it? It's 8.
Yeah. No, it's
5, 6, 7.
7. It's the one before that.
Yeah. I haven't played 7 either. I really enjoyed the Resident Evil games, like 1, 2, 3, and 4. I loved to bits, and then 5 was very bad, and I stopped playing them at that point.
But no, I mean, it's not just as we've talked about before. It wouldn't just be the scares for you. No, it's just you get motion sick just by thinking about movement. So
hang on, what is going on with this constant attacks and this podcast? Like, have I upset you recently in some way that I'm not aware of?
Is that an attack? I mean, it's basically true. It's an exaggeration, but you are very susceptible to it, is what I'm saying.
I can play the video game. I do have to take scopolamine, but I can play the video game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't normally have a problem with first-person shooters, really, unless they're doing any sort of weird graphical shit, like when I was trying to play Control and they hadn't, like, you couldn't turn off the motion blur and it was just making me feel bad. Oh God, where were we? Lambert runs over and jams the cattle prod into Ash's neck, shutting him down in a shower of sparks. Lambert has saved the day.
Hooray.
Yeah, she gets a lot of stick in this movie, but she did the thing. She was very brave. Well done, Lambert. I think we should have a little round of applause for her.
Good work, Lambert.
Yeah. Top work. I mean, she's kind of screaming while she does it, but hey, she does it. She gets the job done. Well done. We cut immediately to the inside of Ash's neck. Parker working inside him with a tool.
Are you going to tell me about the bits now?
Yes. Okay, so let's play a game. Guess what stuff inside Ash is.
Oh, can you... I might need to...
Do you want me to show you the image?
Yeah, show me an image of it, please.
All right, 1 second. Right, there you go. Have a look at that.
I mean, some of it looks a bit like spaghetti.
Yeah, well done. You got spaghetti.
Then looks like there might be some form of intestine there.
Yep. A little bit of seafood too.
Oh, seafood, really? Right. I'm not sure what the balls are about. Maybe they're just plastic balls.
You are glad that you don't know what the little balls are because they're Foley catheters.
Okay.
Some of them are glass marbles, some of them are Foley catheters. It's the balloon part that they push it up your penis into your bladder, and then they inflate the little balloon bit so it stays in place.
Oh, good. I'm glad that they inflate it later.
Grim. Grim AF. But yeah, that's what they are. Oh, there's some fiber optic lights in there that you can't really see.
I promise you, I was also going to say fiber optic cables as well.
Okay.
It looks like you got some.
I'll let you off. Yep. You can't see it as clearly. I guess you can in that shot, like because they're glowing while he's
those little
around there.
Thin things. I thought looked fiber optic,
but it's real grim.
All right, so
well done though.
Was some sort of intestine, was it?
Yeah. Ripley wants Ash turned back on because he might know how to kill the alien. Parker touches his tool to the inside of his neck, which makes sparks, and Ash twitches. Parker stands Ash's head up on the table. You did a little giggle there. I was going to say, did you notice the little cut here?
Yeah, so I think you mentioned while we were watching this that this is a part of the special effects that you don't feel shows up.
Yeah, there is a terribly obvious cut here where he's just sort of like pushing around a latex head on a table. Then the camera goes behind his back. There's a cut, and there's Ian Holmes' head, like sticking up through the table with a rubber neck flap on.
And that cut was obvious when you drew attention to it, but honestly, I have always just kind of accepted it when I've watched it, and it hasn't bothered me too much. The part that I think is more obvious to me is the whole manipulating into place, the whole the whole phase of we need to put this head into a position so that it's absolutely upright, so that we can plausibly cut to a scene where the actor is clearly just under the table.
And again, we have a similar scene to this in Alien 3, but by then we've got much better animatronic technology, so right. It's much less of an issue.
Yes.
My notes here from my research are that they were running out of time at this point, so they just kind of had to go with what they had. Yeah. And for some reason, I've put Ian Holm is under the table.
He is.
That's very obvious. I don't.
Blind drunk through the whole scene. Yeah.
Spitting with rage. Ripley wakes Ash up by banging on the table. Rude. She asks about Special Order 937, which he reiterates for Parker and Lambert. They ask how to kill it, and he says they can't. Oh dear. Ash describes the alien as the perfect organism. And I'm going to read the quote out because it's great.
Yeah.
You still don't understand what you're dealing with, do you? The perfect organism. Its structural perfection is matched only by its hostility.
And we like that phrase, don't we?
Are you going to talk about my Twitter bot?
Yeah. So I believe that we started talking about this line a little bit when we were listening to the song that plays at the end of the DS game Alien Infestation.
Oh my god, that's so. If it wouldn't get me a copyright strike, I'd embed it.
I think we might have mentioned it before at some point, but it's an incredible song, which
incredible in every sense of the word, I think.
Right? It mainly comprises of quotes from the film, just unedited quotes from the film that don't really scan very well.
Alien.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Yeah, you're in for a treat. The song's called LV426. So Google that Alien Infestation LV426 and you'll hear it. It is a masterwork.
It's something.
But oh boy. I'm glad that we did we talk about the Twitter bot? I don't even know what we're talking about anymore.
Well, I was just saying, we started talking about that line because we kept on saying it because we were making fun of this song.
Its structural perfection is matched only by its penchant for owls.
Yeah, so we made up a Twitter bot, or you mainly made it, but I had the idea that
I was going to say bold use of we there.
I had the idea that would replace matched only by it with just various other things that it might be matched only by. So its structural perfection is matched only by its disdain for jazz or whatever, and various other things, and that's a bot that exists on Twitter now and just keeps on spitting those out quite satisfyingly.
It's twitter.com/alien traits if you want to go and have a look at it.
Yes.
The most recent ones here, we've got its structural perfection is matched only by its hunger for concertos.
Yeah.
Structural perfection is matched only by its thirst for leopards.
Yep.
Very sinisterly, its structural perfection is matched only by its interest in children. This one, I quite like this one. It's almost a like a motivational poster. Its structural perfection is matched only by its dedication.
Yeah. Just a real stand-up guy.
Oh, he's so dedicated. That's what everyone says about it.
Dedicated.
Oh, he's
dedicated not necessarily to the right things, but
returning to the podcast again. It's followed by Ripley sort of says disgustedly, "You admire it, don't you?" And Ash says, "I admire its purity. A survivor, unclouded by conscience, remorse, or delusions of morality."
Delusions of morality is an interesting phrase.
Especially for someone who goes around shoving magazines down hooters.
Yeah. I suppose it sees morality as a construct, which it very much is, but kind of an important one for humans to function as a society.
Yeah, it's one that he obviously must emulate.
Yeah.
Parker wants Ripley to shut Ash down, but he asks for a last word. He can't lie to them about their chances, but they have his sympathies. Oh, creepy.
Accompanied with a creepy smile as well.
Yeah, which he keeps his sinister little smile as he gets shut down.
Yeah.
We've mentioned it before, but Ian Holm hated milk, and all the milk went rotten under the studio lights and made him really sick.
Yeah. I do like that one of the things that we get to talk about a little during this podcast is how how very unglamorous a lot of
Yeah.
acting ends up being.
Oh god. I was working in LA, and I got to see them filming part of a TV show called Rizzolian Isles, and the part I witnessed was the main actress walking out of a door, like carrying a suitcase, like one of those little wheelie cases things behind her, and I stood there for half an hour watching this thing play out. And they made her do it 9 times. Right. I was like, what a thankless job being an actor or actress must be. You know?
The thing that makes me realize that I could
ding.
Fine.
Sorry, I got a bit excited there.
The aspect of acting that makes me realize that I could have never have seriously done it, even though I quite liked acting as a child. Was when actors say stuff like, "Oh yeah, I was 36 hours in makeup," and I don't. There's nothing that I could sit there and endure. Not even clicking these fucking signs in Final Fantasy 14 that I could endure for that long and continue doing that for a sustained amount of time. It sounds like hell.
Oh god. Actually, weirdly triggered a memory about Voyager. Star Trek Voyager?
I do.
In some of the later seasons, they have an actress playing the Borg Queen in it.
Right.
I'm not sure if she was the same actress as the Borg Queen from Star Trek First Contact. I don't think she was, actually. But I remember reading an anecdote somewhere where like they wanted her to do it, and she spent like 16 hours or something ridiculous getting into the makeup, and then it took so long to get her into makeup that they made her work for like 12 hours to get the shots they needed, and then she went home and like broke down in tears and called them and was like, "No, I can't do this." And they were like, "Oh, okay, sorry, we'll rework the shooting schedule so that it isn't like you can do 1 day on, 1 day off, and we'll spread it out more so that it's not, we're not forcing you to spend like a whole day doing all this stuff, everything." And I was like, people take the piss, especially when they become very highly regarded and highly paid, but like it is a tough job.
Yeah, no, that whole aspect of it. I mean, I never liked the costume kind of aspect of it. Anyway, I'm not a dressy uppy kind of person naturally. Anyway, but having to sit there while someone works on my face for hours and hours on end, I just can't even imagine how much I would dislike that.
I know. I mean, and there's all those little things in there that can happen and go wrong. Like, I don't know whether we spoke about it, but like Sigourney Weaver thought that she was allergic to Jonesy.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Oh shit! Well, I'm out of the production then, because it's a lot easier to replace like a leading lady than it is to find 4 identical cats."
Yeah. I imagine that in this scene, Ian Holm must have spent considerable time in makeup.
Yeah, I can't imagine he was thrilled.
No. With all that milk.
Oh god. Ripley rips the cables out and he shuts down. They made a model of Ian Holm's head for this, and it kind of shrunk in the mold, and they'd run out of time to make another, so it has a weird, goofy expression.
Yeah.
This whole sequence leading up to this, the script went through a load of revisions, and some of the changes that got cut out included Ash explaining it was cheaper for the company to send a tug to see if it was worth sending a full exploration team, which sort of covers that thing we were talking about earlier.
Right.
That it was illegal to bring alien life forms to Earth on purpose, so it'd look better if it was like a big accident. Like, oh no, they turned up by mistake. Oh well, we'll look after it.
Yeah.
The what's known as the "it followed me home" defense.
Yeah, I guess.
And most interestingly, Ash suggesting that he'd already started communicating with the alien. That would have put a real different spin on things.
Certainly would. They don't seem like the most communicative in a useful way, anyway.
Yeah, they seem like they're smart but predatory and just sort of obeying instincts.
Yeah.
Not like it never seems like it's reasoning like a person.
No.
Ash originally wasn't in the script at all, but he was added in a rewrite by Walter Hill and David Giler. Dan O'Bannon, who wrote the original script, never cared for Ash nor the company subplot.
I have to disagree.
Yeah, I do as well. I don't know if it's hindsight, but it really adds something to the movie, and it's definitely become a thing for the Alien universe going forward. Like, the aliens are bad, but the way people treat other people is worse.
Yeah, no, it's something I really associate with the series, even as someone who's only really watched the first two in any detail.
Raised by bats.
No, look, I have to emphasize, like, when I was at a normal age to watch these films, they were old films.
Oh, dear. Is this going to be the last podcast before we have creative differences? And I have to replace you.
I think we just both have to accept that we're just fucked up in very different ways.
Two-thirds of each podcast snide attacks on the podcaster.
At some stage, through all of our weird foibles, we've managed to cobble together a friendship.
And working personalities. Oh, that's how humans are. It good. Oh boy. Collect neuroses as you go. Good news for everybody, though. Ripley has decided to blow up the ship and escape with Parker and Lambert in the shuttle. Remember, the shuttle won't take 4. Now there are only 3 of them.
How convenient.
As they leave the room, Parker turns around and blasts Ash with the incinerator, burning his remains.
Probably a good move, best to be sure.
There's something interesting. Ian Holmes said he felt very sad when they burnt the head, saying it was sort of strange to see your own death like that. I was like, yeah, I suppose, really. I honestly never thought about it, but I guess if somebody took the time to make a reasonably realistic model of me and then burned it in front of me...
Should we try it? Stick it on YouTube?
No. I don't want that. We cut to the 3 of them wandering through the cramped corridors, talking about the ship's detonation procedure. There's a great line here from Parker where it's like, if we're not out of here in 10 minutes, we won't need no rocket to fly through space. They reach a crossroads, and Ripley says they'll need coolant for the air support system. And that's it. That's where we're leaving this one. They've got a plan. It looks like a good plan. They're going to do their plan.
A fairly neat segment, I would say. It's what I like. You have one major bit of action happening, and then just a little bit of setup for the next bit.
Well, I was going to say we actually had quite a lot of notes about this section. Maybe like twice as many as usual, just because there's so much stuff going on in such a short space of time.
Yes. Very Ash focused.
Yeah. He doesn't play a big role in the rest of the film, though, so no. Consider this his swan song.
Yeah, mainly melted now.
Oh, boy. Okay, Peter, you are up. Who's infected?
Maybe still Dallas. I'm still not 100% sure whether we're going to encounter Dallas again later or not. I can't remember whether that's something I'm remembering from another film or something else.
Do you want to know?
No, I'll discover it naturally.
Because it will be coming up. Not in the next section, but maybe the one after.
Yeah, I think we're going to see Dallas again.
Okay.
But not quite yet.
All right.
I think what's going to happen in the next bit is we're gonna have Ripley and the others making preparations for their escape plan, and are they going to start the countdown yet? Is it that time? It might be that time. I know that there is a countdown to destruction that is
10 minutes.
That is going to be turned on at some point. I don't know whether we're a bit early for that, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say that starts during the next segment. And I think probably also there's going to be another encounter of some description with the alien during the next section, because it's been a while since we've seen the alien now.
That's true.
But my predictions are all a bit vague because I don't remember the exact order of events at this point.
Yeah, I've got a feeling that this is one of those bits in the movie where stuff just becomes jumbled for you, and then we get to the denouement, and you know what's going to happen then.
Yeah.
Did you know that the alien gets 4 minutes of screen time?
No, I didn't know that, but
across the whole film.
It actually would not have surprised me if it was less than that. If you'd have said 2 minutes, I would have said, yeah, fair enough. That sounds about right.
We do get a better view of him towards the end of the movie.
Yeah, that's true. I imagine a lot of that is backloaded as well. Yeah, because you don't need it. You just need the tension. You just need the tension.
That's another thing. That's a sort of important thing, is if you've got a scary monster, show as little of it as possible, because then you won't realize it's a dude in a rubber suit.
Right. And also just you get used to it. You get used to the scary monster. Most films that have a scary monster which is in it a lot aren't that scary, really, because
that's true.
They're scary at first, but then you kind of get used to the scary monster, and you're just like, there might be some tension, but it loses its spook factor.
Yeah, the familiarity breeds contempt, I think, is possibly not relevant here.
Yeah, no, not the right phrase. You don't learn to hate them.
You scorn the alien for its goofy appearance. Oh, look at you with your banana head and your weird back tubes. You can't sit down properly. I'm sorry, I don't know where that came from. Would you like an anecdote?
What, another one? Sure.
Yeah, sure. Oh, no, all right. I don't have to.
No, go
on. So we've spoken about Alien Isolation before, and the incredible work Creative Assembly did to get across the environment and detail from the original Alien movie and sort of spread it out like peanut butter into a new environment, like filling all the cracks with it like peanut butter. I haven't had lunch, by the way.
You want peanut butter sandwich?
Yeah, I'm gonna have a sandwich after this podcast, maybe peanut butter. But one of the things they changed slightly was the alien itself, because they copied the alien from Giger's original designs, and and like movie shots and production stills and all that kind of stuff that 20th Century Fox were kind enough to send over to them. And it looked too much like a man in a suit when they'd finished putting it all together. Because like generally in the movie you're only seeing the top half of the alien, like, or maybe the tail or a bit.
Yeah.
But if you in a game, they can't easily control the context under which you'll be looking at it.
Right.
So they were like, it sort of looks like a dude in a suit. And in the end, how they resolved it was they put its legs on backwards. They flipped its knees around, so it's got like sort of more animalistic stompy legs rather than our don't know what the technical term for human knees is. If you do, write in. So they copied it exactly, but they had to change the alien slightly because it looks a little bit too much like a man in a rubber suit, even though it couldn't physically be one because it's a virtual thing entirely in a game space.
Yeah, no, makes sense. There's a couple of moments coming up in the film, I think, where you do get the man in a suit vibes a little time, but it's so quick. You get so little screen time that it doesn't really matter. There's
a bit in the next there's a deleted scene we're going to talk about in the next episode, and I'm really excited to show it to you.
Okay. I think I might not have seen it before.
No. I only found out about this quite recently, and enjoy this movie a lot. So I was delighted to encounter it, and I think you will be too.
Well, I mean, in that case, I definitely will not have seen this before.
I see why they took it out of the film. Let's put it that way.
Great. I'm looking forward to it.
One final question for you before I ask you a second final question. Oh God, no. Oh yeah, hire me to be your podcast host. I know things. Who dies next, Peter? Are you sticking with Parker?
I think I am. Yeah, I'm going to stick with that.
How do you think he dies? Don't say the alien.
I mean, it's going to be the alien, but I reckon while they're all splitting up to do their various tasks to prepare for the evac, he just gets singled out by the alien and cornered and sliced.
Cornered and sliced like a peanut butter sandwich.
But I've got no clue whether that's accurate or not because I really don't remember.
And, of course, the actual, for realty's final question, what are you thinking of the film so far? We're very far through the movie. We only have 4 more episodes left to go. So if now you fucking hate it, then I'm like, well, I can't help you.
Well, as I said, it's probably this segment probably contains my least favorite individual moment of the film.
Yeah, I mean, it's not high on my list. It's at the worst, it's very uncomfortable. At the best, it's baffling. So, yeah. I mean, let's just say it was something that worked in the 70s, but may not be as cool now.
But I have, I like the stuff that's happening around it. I like the ending for the character, and I'm enjoying the film. It's settled down now into just general enjoyment rather than. I feel like, and I've talked about this before. I feel like in the first half of the film, I was really, really kind of intrigued and super engaged with it because the way that we do this really kind of brought to light the pacing, the slow pacing of that early part of the film, and I just found that really interesting to look at in detail. Now it's just kind of just enjoyable action and
it's all action from here on in. Like there isn't like a slack moment.
Right, and it's all perfectly enjoyable, but maybe not as special for me as what the first half of it was.
Right, I guess that brings us to the end of another delicious episode. Definitely our longest so far. Hooray.
Right.
It's nice how they just get longer and longer and longer. It's like, that's what you want from a podcast, for the episode lengths to trend towards infinity.
Yeah, I tried listening to one the other day, and you know what? I do go on a bit, don't I?
Yeah, and I cut out easily 2/3 of what you say. We're actually at the 4-hour mark on the recording, and like a lot of Peter's stuff is going in the trash. All the weirdly sexual stuff, that's gone. Oh God. So it's the end of the podcast. If you have, well, it's the end of this episode of the podcast, not the whole podcast. I don't know why I felt the need to clarify that. Like, what is wrong with me?
We all understand.
Everyone understands. I just don't know why I felt the need to clarify. I apologize. I'm sorry. I've let the team down. I've let myself down. I've let the other guest presenter down. He gets angry if I don't call him a co-host. Where are we going with this? If you want,
you're wrapping up.
I've gone into some sort of tangent. Maybe I need to put a magazine in someone's mouth. I think
you're going into a loop somehow, and this podcast will never end.
I think what we've learned is that I should have a peanut butter sandwich before starting the podcast.
Yeah,
it doesn't help that the jar of peanut butter I bought to make the sandwich with is in my line of sight. Anyway, so if you'd like to email us, it's podcast@8minutemovies.co.uk, and we will read your email with our eyes.
Maybe you'd like to share some trivia, eh? Show us up a bit, eh?
Stop it!
Jerk.
Stop. You apologize right now to the listener.
I'm sorry.
There you go. Don't. If you want to contact us again, please do. Like he's just what are you angry for? You don't do any research. You just turn up and watch a movie.
Look, I want people to think that I contribute more to this than I actually do.
It takes me about 6 hours to research an episode of this podcast.
Yeah, we're all very impressed.
What you do?
You couldn't find out about that helmet, though, could you? No.
Fuck you. Oh god, he's such a twat. Oh, I do apologize. Yeah, so email us if you want to comment on our obvious and continuous emotional breakdown that this podcast has become, or if you have a question or anything. Otherwise, I can be found on the Twitters as Kieran J. Walsh. The robot that tweets occasionally about the alien is twitter.com/alien traits. And there's no one else contributing to this podcast that we need to mention.
You can find me at Kestrel Pie on Twitter. That's Kestrel like the bird and Pi like the irrational number.
Oh, I thought about pie. Sorry, I am too hungry to be recording a podcast. I apologize.
Have your sandwich.
I'm going to go and have a sandwich. Okay. Goodbye, listener. We promise the next episode will be better. We don't promise that at all.
It's just a downward spiral.
Yeah. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.